I think it is safe to say that 2017 has been the most eventful year in Fire Emblem's history. We got another installment in the main series via Echoes, a mobile game, a full-fledged Dynasty Warriors spin-off, and the series has never been more popular. Not to mention a new game is already on the horizon for the Nintendo Switch. With all these new directions the series has been taking, it really got me thinking. When it comes down to it, what is a Fire Emblem game? I'm not joking. Think about it. How many systems, mechanics, and features could you take away from a Fire Emblem game before it ceased to be, well, Fire Emblem? To explore this idea, I created a list of mechanics that have appeared in every title from the Famicom to the 3DS, and one by one I began crossing them off, organizing them into groups based on how difficult it was to justify taking them out. This video is the results of said experiment. Today, we will be building our own Fire Emblem game from scratch, system by system, mechanic by mechanic, in a bid to explore what it is that exactly defines Fire Emblem. To begin, let's use what pre-existing knowledge we have of Fire Emblem to build our base. Fire Emblem is a tactical RPG. In fact, it is often credited for the proliferation of the genre, so let's tackle that first word. Tactical. A reference to the elements that this genre borrows from strategy games, mainly grid-based movement, unit-based combat, and turn-based play order. So that means we need a grid to play on. In Fire Emblem's case, the square grid is a staple of the series, but a grid is useless on its own. We need some units to populate this grid. Okay, with that done, let's divide them into teams. So far, so good. But this isn't Fire Emblem yet. Our units don't have any method of moving around the grid, so let's give them a movement stat that is equal to the amount of units they can move in a single turn. Great, now they can move. But how do they defeat their opponent's units? Well, let's give them some basic statistics like health, attack, range, defense, and create calculations that subtract from units' health if they are engaged in a battle within their attack range. And voila! I may have skipped a few details here and there, but this is essentially our base. The bare minimum required to replicate Fire Emblem gameplay in some form. Or is it? See, we may have a minimal viable product of a tactical game here, but I think I speak for everyone when I say that what is on screen is only Fire Emblem by technicality. It is missing some essential pieces that will make it the Fire Emblem we know and love. The first addition to our base formula to add some spice is RNG. RNG is faceted into so many aspects of Fire Emblem gameplay that leaving it out is nigh impossible if we wish to capture the true spirit of Fire Emblem. If you want to see a more in-depth dissection of this topic, watch my complete video on it. But to summarize, RNG is what gives the gameplay life. The outcome of a unit missing an attack adds so many possibilities in how a battle can progress and flow. With RNG, the player is constantly given meaningful decisions, and it is very unlikely that there is one correct answer. To illustrate this point, I'm going to quote an interview with Shouzou Kaga, the designer of the original Fire Emblem game on the Famicom and father of the series. When asked a question about the various mix of strategies available to players, Kaga responded, "There hasn't been a lot of room for the player's originality in previous RPGs, because if you give the player too much control, it would break the structure of the game. That's the advantage of including strategy mechanics. There's a million different ways to accomplish the same goal, and there's actually room for the player to make choices. And the accumulation of all those choices made leads to a very different experience for each player." As illustrated by this quote, Fire Emblem places a very high priority on choices. RNG is so critical to this facet of the game because of just how many layers it adds to decision making. There is rarely a correct choice that will guarantee victory, only choices that you will have to live with the outcome of. As such, RNG is absolutely critical to creating diverse gameplay that constantly remains engaging, and necessary in any definition of Fire Emblem because of the impact it has on the gameplay. So we've deconstructed and tackled the strategy aspect of tactical RPG, but it's time to tackle that second chunk, the role-playing game. Fire Emblem lends a lot of its mechanics from RPGs and tabletop games. Mechanics such as experience points, leveling up, and classes all trace their gaming roots to the classic Dungeons & Dragons. And it is this collision of both tactical and role-playing mechanics that make the tactical RPG what it is. and that is why it is so integral to include them in a definition of Fire Emblem. This is the game that put tactical RPGs on the map, so to drop or lose mechanics and systems that justify the tactical or RPG moniker is difficult to do from a historical context. The RPG elements also greatly amplify attachment to the units. Currently in our theoretical Fire Emblem, we have a bunch of generic classes attacking one another with RNG, but in actual Fire Emblem, the units are not just classes, they're characters. They have personalities, quirks, strengths, weaknesses, not just as units, but as people. And through battle you get to know them, create bonds in the fires of battle, and this is where Fire Emblem truly begins to forge its own path that differentiates itself from its contemporaries. See, when your units are not just faceless soldiers, or generic, they are able to bond much closer to the player. It's not my archer just died, it's Virion just died. Combine these characters with the before mentioned RPG mechanics, which only enhance attachment through watching them grow and get stronger, level up, gain experience, and Fire Emblem begins to come to life. It is through this characterization of the units that gives Fire Emblem its power to engage players on a level that many strategy games choose to ignore, a goal that Shouzou Kaga strove to achieve from the outset. I call it role-playing simulation. It's a new genre. Basically, it's a strategy game. But strategy games are typically of the hardcore and dry. You only care about winning or losing the battle. There is no space for the player to empathize with the characters or story. It should be clear by now, or at least with that quote, that this is really what sets Fire Emblem apart from the strategy pack. Yes, the gameplay is enjoyable and refined, but from its inception, the characters were meant to be the star of the show. They grant Fire Emblem this mesmerizing power to engage deeper with not only strategy fans, but a whole new audience of people who otherwise would have never enjoyed one. Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle: permadeath. I'll get this out of the way and make it as clear as possible. Fire Emblem needs permadeath. By that I don't mean that Fire Emblem should not have alternative game modes that turn it off, but permadeath's inclusion is what takes Fire Emblem's unique ambition with its character and player relationship to its highest level. To exclude it from any entry would be immense disservice to the power and potency created from the symbiotic relationship it has with every single one of the game's other mechanics. The player's investment is not only in the work they have put into leveling and growing their characters, but their emotional investment in them. This effect is only amplified when such bonds are on the line. It is a feeling hard to describe, but many times in my life I really did feel a shared bond with another person when we overcame amazing odds and adversity together. And the more adversity, the stronger that connection is. No other game has captured that emotion greater than Fire Emblem with permadeath. One last time I'll let Shouzou Kaga explain. I wanted to make a strategy game that was more dramatic, something where you would really be able to feel the pain and struggle of the characters. That's why characters can't be revived once they're killed, to impart a sense of gravity and seriousness. In turn, I think the result is that the more love you have for your characters, the more rewarding the game is. Permadeath, as a mechanic, embodies the goals and objectives Fire Emblem strives to achieve, and in more ways than one, it is the soul of the series. To summarize this mess a little more concisely, Fire Emblem as a game can be divided into three parts: the tactics, the role-playing, and the soul. The tactics encapsulates the strategy and wargame foundation the game is built off of. The role-playing builds off said foundation and creates the tactical RPG we all know and love. And the soul? Well, the soul is the mechanics that constantly strive to achieve something greater than just another tactical RPG. In Fire Emblem's case, its connection between player and character is near unrivaled in the gaming space in terms of potency and engagement. These are the three minimum components required, in my mind at least, that justify any game being called a true successor to the original Famicom title. Without tactics, Fire Emblem is just another RPG. Without roleplay, it's just another strategy game. But of these, the most integral is the soul, because without its soul, Fire Emblem lacks its amazing ambition. The ambition to connect with people through games on a deeper level. Thanks for watching.